Hi, this is Karen with Karen's Cards and More, and I'm ready for our Monday night stamp and share. And for the month of September, we are going to be featuring the Love of Leaves stamp set and the Stitched Leaves die set. So all of our projects this month are going to feature this set. If you are new to Stamp and Share, be sure to check the announcements on the my Facebook group, Karen's Cards and More, and the page, Karen's Cards and More. You'll see what October's projects are going to be, as well as the remainder of September. And you'll see how you can go about getting the kits or the PDFs. All the information is there in the announcements, so be sure and check that out. So let's talk about tonight's card. I figured for fall it'd be good to feature some leaves, and I love this set, so that's what we're going to do this evening. So our card this evening is this Thinking of You card. Here's the front, and then on the inside, for an added touch, we're going to do some special things on the inside. So that's what we're going to do. Let's talk about the cardstock that you're going to need. I didn't use any designer series paper on this card. We're going to kind of make our own using the stamps. So I started with a piece of soft suede that is 8.5 by 5.5, scored in the middle at 4 1/4. And then I have a piece of Cinnamon Cider that is 5 1/4 by 4. Then you're going to need a piece of Bumblebee, which is 2 7/8 by 3 7/8. A piece of basic white for the inside, that's 5 1/4 by 4. A piece of basic white for the outside, which is 3 7/8 by 5 1/8. And then a piece for the front panel with the sentiment, that's 2 1/2 by 3 1/2. And then you'll also need just a scrap of basic white to do the leaf die cut that we're going to do for the front. So that's the cardstock that you'll need. And I'll put the dimensions in the description below on the YouTube video. So if you're watching the replay on YouTube, or if you're coming in late tonight to the Stamp and Share and you missed the dimensions, check out my YouTube channel, Karen's Cards and More, and you'll see the dimensions there. Okay? So let's get started. The first thing we need to do, because we need it to dry before we can handle it, on the front of the card, I wanted to use some ribbon that's the Cinnamon Cider color, but I didn't have anything that color. So what I did is I took a piece of the White Crinkle ribbon, and we're just going to color this in Cinnamon Cider. So all you need to do is take your Cinnamon Cider ink, and I'm just using a sponge dauber, and I'm going to dab this in my ink, and then I'm just going to sponge it on the ribbon. And you can make this as dark of a Cinnamon Cider color as you want, or as light, depending on what you like. But we do need this to have time to dry before we try to tie our bow. And of course, the more you work with the sponging, the more even you can get the color. Sometimes I like to put my sponge dauber on it and grab the end and just kind of slide like that to kind of even out the tones a little bit. Sometimes that helps even it out. And it doesn't really matter which side you color. So I'm just going to keep talking while I color. And I liked I liked it all not being exactly the same shade, because you're going to see with the leaves, they're not going to be the same shade either. So it was okay with me that this wasn't one solid shade of Cinnamon Cider. So I'm just going to keep working with this. It's hard to believe we're already in September. I will tell you that October, I'm going to feature the sunflower set, Celebrate Sunflowers. And then in November, we're going to move right into some Christmas type cards. I haven't fully got my plan yet, but probably both November and December will be Christmas themed projects. So another thing to keep an eye out for I could have done this ahead of time. I just want to say this. I could have done this ahead of time. And for those of you that are watching on YouTube and you're thinking, why didn't she do this ahead of time? Because there could be people that are crafting along with me during the Facebook Live. I wanted to give them time to do theirs as well. And if I already had it done and just skipped it, then they're already going to be feeling behind. So that's why I'm taking the time to do this as part of the live. So that's just why I'm doing that. But another thing to keep an eye on my Facebook group and my Facebook page is I'm going to soon be having a blog started. I'm working on getting that in the process. I have someone that's helping me with that. And I'm going to have that up and running at some point in the near future. And I'll be putting an announcement on there and a link to it once I get that up and running. So definitely be watching for that. I think I probably got enough of this, but I definitely want to have plenty of time for it to dry before we go tying a bow, because it will come off on your fingers. But you can do this with any of the colors, any color ribbon you need. That's what's neat about having this crinkle white. It's a good one to have on hand because you can always color it for any color card that you have. So whatever you need, you can always do that. So, okay. So I think I have enough. Hopefully I'll be able to tie a bow with that. So I'm just going to set that aside and let it just dry while we're working on the rest of the card. And so for the next part, we're just going to bring in the smaller of the two white pieces. Remember I said one of them was 5 1/4 by 4 and the other was 3 7/8 by 5 1/8. So the larger of the two is going to go for the inside. The smaller one is for the outside. So it doesn't matter which one we do first. So let's just go ahead and do the larger one. Let's do the inside piece. So if you look at them, you want the larger one. And I'm going to bring this back in to show you. We're just going to stamp it with the Bumblebee. And I'm using the smallest of the leaves. Let me show you that stamp. I'm using the smallest of the leaves, and we're just going to stamp it at a diagonal in each corner. I'm going to move this back out of the way, and we'll just stamp this. I'm going to put a piece of foam underneath, just because I'm working with the polymer stamp set. I'm just going to ink this up. Now, one thing that I want to point out to you with this stamp set, especially if you're new to using the Stampin' Up! Stamps, or I'm sure most companies have these kind of stamps, but let me show you the front of the case. So you can see that the leaves look they have like that spotty, artistic, watercolory look. That's how they're meant to be. And so when you ink up your stamp, it's not going to fully cover. It's meant to be a sporadic ink. I've got something on my stamp, so I'm going to just do that to get that off before I try to stamp on my project. So you're not going to have, it's not going to be a complete leaf. It's meant to look that way. So don't think that you did something wrong. So I'm just going to stamp here. And then I'm going to come around and just do another one on the other side. Just like that. Now we're going to be using the die, one of the dies on this in a little bit, but I want to wait and do all of our die cutting at once. So we're just going to set this aside for now. And we're going to bring in our other piece of Whisper White. And we're just going to do some sporadic leaves. So this size leaf on this piece, I'm going to do out of the Soft Suede. And this large looking leaf, I'm going to do out of the Cinnamon Cider. And then this longer skinny leaf I'm going to do out of the Bumblebee. So I'm going to start, I'm just going to go ahead and open all these up so that when I'm ready to use them, I can just pull them in. I'm going to start with the Cinnamon Cider. And that's this larger one. And I'm just going to stamp. Now you can do these in any order, in any pattern that you want. You do not have to follow what I'm doing. I just wanted to get, and I'm stamping some of it off of the cardstock and then some of it on. So I just wanted to get a variety of the leaves on there in a variety of colors. So I'm just going to come in here like this. And I'm going to start with 2 of each color, and then I can always add more. So now I'm going to come in with the Soft Suede. Let's see where we want to do this. I want to give room for the Bumblebee to separate our browns. And I'm going to go ahead and do my Bumblebee so I can know where else that I might need to put some of the brown, because I definitely want to break it up. Just like that. There's really no way to mess this up. It's just however you want to put them on here. A little bit of the yellow right there. And I think that looks pretty good. I think we're done with that. So the other thing that we need to stamp, we got just a couple more pieces of stamping, and we're going to go ahead and get that done. On the bottom left of the smallest of the basic white pieces, that's where we're going to do our sentiment. I thought of you today, and we're doing that also in the Cinnamon Cider. So I'm going to bring that back in, and I'm going to ink that up. And we're just going to do it down in this lower left corner. Hold that for a moment and let the ink sink into the paper. Okay? And then I'm going to be using all 3 of the colors. And I just have a scrap piece of basic white here. And let me clean the one leaf that we're going to be using. We're going to be using this shade. I'm just going to clean it off. And I wanted this to have all 3 colors in there, starting with the Soft Suede at the bottom, and then going to the Cinnamon Cider, and then the Bumblebee. So what I have sponge daubers for each color. So I'm just going to come in with the Soft Suede, and I'm just going to tap the bottom portion of the leaf and the stem in the Soft Suede. Now you could try to just put this on the ink pad and do a third of it with one, a third of, but I didn't want to take the chance of contaminating, getting ink mixed in the different places. So that's why I like to use the sponge daubers. So then I'm going to come in with the Cinnamon Cider, and I'm going to do the middle of the stamp. And that way they're just going to kind of blend together. And then I'm going to come in with the Bumblebee and do the top little portion of the flower, or the leaf. And this gives us a 3-color leaf. And I'm going to go ahead, we're done with our ink pads after this, so I just want to get them out of the way before I stamp this. And it really doesn't matter how you stamp this because we're going to be die cutting it. So it doesn't have to be perfectly straight. There's no right or wrong way. So I'm just going to stamp this down on here. And we're going to have a multicolor leaf that we're able to put on the front. Just like that. Now this is a little softer look because we did the sponging, but I'm okay with that. You could definitely sponge more to get a darker look. It's whatever you want. It's however you want to do it. So I'm fine with the lighter look. I kind of like that. I think it looks pretty. So we're going to go with that. Now I'm going to bring in my die cut machine. And I'm using my old one. I don't have one. Cricut does have one, or Stampin' Up does have one. I haven't gotten it yet, so I'm using my old one. So I'm just going to, this is just a cuddle bug. So I'm going to start with this piece that we stamped the 2 bumblebee leaves on. And put that right in there. Hopefully that's on the screen. And one of the dies that comes with this set looks like this. And you might think, what do I do with that? Kind of looks like a skyline. So in order to give some interest to the inside of the card, I just lined this up with the bottom of my inside piece. And you can decide, you know, what part of it you want to show on the inside. And I'm just going to line this up on the bottom. This doesn't cut through, it just indents. So I'm going to run this through. And pull that off. And you can see it just makes like stitching marks. So I thought that was a neat touch for the inside of the card. You still have plenty of room to write your greeting to whoever you're sending to. You definitely want to do this indentation after you've done your stamping. Do the stamping first and then run it through for your indentation. So now I'm going to come in with the leaf that we just stamped. And there's a die that fits that perfectly. So I'm just going to line this up to get our leaf for the front. And if you're not sure that you can run this through with it without it moving, you can always tape it down. And it's meant to leave a little bit of a white border, so you don't want to see the white. When you put this down, put it right up against the image, but when you die cut it, it will leave a little bit of a white. My biggest problem is once I get it set, I always bump it and move it myself. So I'm just going to put this down on here and run this through. And there we have our leaf, our multicolored leaf for the front of our card. Just like that. I love this set. I think it's so pretty. You can do so much with it. Okay, so we're done with that. Now we're down to, let me think. Yeah, we're down to putting it together. So let me bring in all of our pieces. Hopefully our ribbon has had a chance to dry well enough that we'll be able to manipulate it. Oh, there is one more thing that we want to do. So we're going to be doing it to this piece that we stamped, and we're also going to be doing it to the little piece on the front that we put the sentiment on. So let me show you what we're going to do. I'm using the dark Stampin' Blends for the Bumblebee, the Soft Suede, and the Cinnamon Cider. Just the dark. And I wanted to put splatter marks on there. Let me bring back the card and show you. See the splatters? I wanted to do that, so I'm going to show you how I did that with the Stampin' Blends. On this piece, I wanted it, to be all over. And you can do this as dense or as sparse as you want to do them. It's totally up to you. So the brush end, and you don't want to be too rough with this or you'll damage the end. All you have to do is flick on the edge of your Stampin' Blend lid, just like this, and it splatters. It looks much more technical than it is, let me tell you. And I'm just doing a little of each color. And every one of these, again, is going to be different because it's going to depend on how much splattering you do. So we have that done. And then I wanted to splatter on this, but I just wanted it, let me show you, I just wanted it in this portion where the leaf is going to go. I didn't want it over my writing. So all I did, and I'm going to just use the scrap that we stamped out of, all I did is took a scrap and just laid it over that to protect it, to cover it, so that the splattering would not get where my writing is. And I'm going to come back and I'm going to do the same process. I'm just going to do a little bit of splattering. It's really hard to aim this. That's why you almost have to have something there to cover the part you don't want, because it's really, really hard to aim this. And this one I'm doing much thicker than I have the example one. And that's okay. All right. So I've got my writing protected. And some of this you're not even going to see because the leaf is going to go across there. Okay. So we're ready to put this together. So let me bring in the card base. And I'm going to bring in my silicone mat. And I'm just going to use liquid glue tonight. I ran out of Stampin' Seal and I'm waiting. It's on back order right now, so I'm waiting on my order to come. I think it's supposed to be here in the next week or two, so I'm going to go ahead and use liquid glue tonight. So I'm going to start with my inside piece. And I'm just going to put some glue. And you definitely don't need to put a tremendous amount of glue. It's going to hold it. If you put too much, it's just going to ooze out and make a mess. So less is really more when it comes to this glue. So I'm going to bring this in. And the great thing about the liquid glue, as I'm sure I've said before, if you've watched me, you've heard me say, you do have a little time to work with it. If you don't get it on straight the first time, you have more time and ability to move it. If you're a beginning card maker, I would recommend starting with liquid glue because you definitely have more time to get it the way you want it than you do with Stampin' Seal. I'm just going to flip this over because remember, if this is our inside, then this is what we need to decorate for the front of our card. Okay, so the next thing we want to do, I'm going to go ahead and mount our stamped piece on our Cinnamon Cider piece. And this is going to have a narrower border than what we are going to have when we place this on the card base. Okay, so I'm just going to put some liquid glue on the back of our stamped piece. I'm going to move my card base just while I'm gluing this down. I'm just going to try to center that and get that where it needs to go. I got a little bit crooked, so I'm just going to manipulate it a little bit here. I'm going to add a little more glue since I pulled it off. I do find that usually I have better luck with placement when I try to line up the longer edge first and then let the shorter side just hit where it hits. If I try to line up on the short side, I usually get it off, but if I line up on the longer side, that usually works for me. So try different ways, see what works for you. If you're having trouble, try doing it the other way and see if that makes it easier. I think it's all about the perspective, the way that you, your eyes look at it. Okay, so I'm going to make sure once again that I'm doing this in the right place. And I'm going to line this up on the longer side. And that looks pretty good. Nope, it's off at the top a little bit. There. I'm going to press that down. And then I'm going to mount this on our Bumblebee. Such pretty fall colors. Again, just lining that up. This is going to also be just a small border. Okay. And we're going to attach this at an angle, just like that. And we're just about done. Just like that. Okay. And then I'm going to bring my ribbon over because we're going to be using that. And I'm going to use Stampin' Dimensionals on our leaf. And it's going to go just right at an angle like that. So I'm just going to put some dimensionals on the back of our leaf. Move that out from under it so you can see, so I don't have the white under the white. That makes it hard to see it. Okay, I'm just going to peel the backings off. And we're just going to put this at an angle on the front of our card. Just like that. Now this is the hardest part for me to do on a video, tying a bow. And I tie bows, you know, I do it all different ways. You can do the 2 loops, the bunny ears, like that. You can do just like you're tying your shoe, because you can always manipulate it when you're pulling it through. You really have to find what works for you. And I always have trouble doing this on a video. I don't know why. I guess knowing people are watching me tie the bow. And then you can just pull and then pull your loops shorter and just keep working it until you get it where you want it to be. I will tell you with this crinkle ribbon, you don't want to pull too much on the edge of the ribbon because it will start to fray if you pull too much just like right on the edge. So I think that's good. So I'm going to bring in my scissors and I'm just going to trim this. And we're ready to put that on there. And I usually always use a glue dot because you can always scrunch them up. So what I do is I just take a glue dot on the end of my Take Your Pick tool. And I just kind of scrunch it. If it's a little bow like this and the knot's little, I just kind of scrunch it up to just give me a little glob of glue. And I'm just going to put that on the back of my knot. And I'm just putting this at the base of where the leaf and the stem come together. And I did not get my glue dot off of my take your pick tool. It would help it stick if it was on there. Well, it wants to stick to everything but where I want it to tonight. Trying to see if it went where I wanted it to. It still didn't stick. It's sticking to my fingers, but not sticking to the bow. Well, it does not want to stick. So what we're just going to do is we're going to just do a glue dot. Just a regular dot of glue, I should say. It could be because of the ink. If the ink's not fully dry, that could be what's causing that not to stick. But that's okay, because we can use glue. So I'm just going to stick this right there in that glue. And just hold it for a second. And then you can, if you need to trim your ends more, you can. I'm going to go ahead and do that while I'm holding that down to dry just for a moment. Okay, now we're ready to just fold this over, and I'm just going to bring in my bone folder and just crease it just like that, and there we have it. I thought of you today, and plenty of room to write a personal message. And it's that easy, and it looks so much harder than it is. It's just so easy to have such a neat handmade look that anybody would just love to have. I hope you enjoyed this card. I hope you'll join me again. If you are joining me on YouTube, please subscribe to my channel. Hit the notification bell. You'll be notified every time I upload a video. Give me a thumbs up if you like it. Give me a thumbs down if you don't. Any feedback I'll take. And if you like the products you see here tonight and that I'm going to be using for the rest of the month, and you would like to order them, you don't have a Stampin' Up! Demonstrator, you can go to my website, karensmith.stampinup.net, and you can order from there. And again, it's called The Love of Leaves, and the corresponding die set is Stitched Leaves. And you can find everything that I used here tonight there on the website if you want to place an order. I look forward to crafting again with you soon.